as well call this morning pages, as we're getting it in early today. This is, as you well know, A Wizard of Earthsea, Chapter 5, Part 2, The Last Sentence. Archmage Genser is saying, "But I do not know if any place is safe for you, or where your way goes. I do not want to send you out into the dark." It seemed a bright enough place to Jed at first, the house under the flowering trees. There he lived and watched the western sky often, and kept his wizard's ear tuned for the sound of scaly wings. But no dragons came. Jed fished from his jetty and tended his garden patch. He spent whole days pondering a page or a line or a word in the lore books he had brought from Roke, sitting out in the summer air under the pendic trees, while the otok slept beside him or went hunting mice in the forests of grass and daisies. And he served the people of Low Torning as heal-all and weather-worker whenever they asked him. It did not enter his head that a wizard might be ashamed to perform such simple crafts, for he had been a witch-child among poorer folk than these. They, however, asked little of him, holding him in awe, partly because he was a wizard from the Isle of the Wise, and partly on account of his silence and his scarred face. There was that about him, young as he was, that made men uneasy with him. Yet he found a friend, a boat-maker who dwelt on the next islet eastward. His name was Petchfury. They had met first on his jetty, where Jed stopped to watch him stepping the mast of a little catboat. He had looked up at the wizard with a grin and said, "Here's a month's work nearly finished. I guess you might have done it in a minute with a word, eh, sir?" "I might," said Jed, "but it would likely sink the next minute, unless they kept the spells up. But if you like," he stopped. "Well, sir?" "Well, that is a lovely little craft. She needs nothing. But, if you like, I could set a binding spell on her to help keep her sound, or a finding spell to help bring her home from the sea." He spoke hesitantly, not wanting to offend the craftsman, but Petchfury's face shone. "The little boat's for my son, sir, and if you would lay such charms on her, it would be a mighty kindness and a friendly act." And he climbed up onto the jetty to take Jed's hand, then and there, and thank him. After that, they came to work together often, Jed interweaving his spell crafts with Petchfury's handwork on the boats he built or repaired, and in return, learning from Petchfury how a boat was built, and also how a boat was handled without aid of magic. For this skill of plain sailing had been somewhat scanted on Roke. Often Jed and Petchfury and his little son Eoth went out into the channels and lagoons, sailing or rowing one boat or another, till Jed was a fair sailor, and the friendship between him and Petchfury was a settled thing. Along in late autumn, the boatmaker's son fell sick. The mother sent for the witch woman of Tesk Isle, who was a good hand at healing, and all seemed well for a day or two. Then, in the middle of a stormy night, came Petchfury's hammering at Jed's door, begging him to come save the child. Jed ran down to the boat with him, and they rowed in all haste through the dark and rain to the boatmaker's house. There, Jed saw the child on his pallet bed, and the mother crouched silent beside him, and the witch woman making a smoke of corley root and singing the Nagian chant, which was the best healing she had. But she whispered to Jed, "Lord Wizard, I think this fever is the red fever, and the child will die of it tonight." When Jed knelt and put his hands on the child, he thought the same, and he drew back a moment. In the latter months of his own long sickness, the Master Herbal had taught him much of the healer's lore, and the first lesson, and the last of all that lore, was this: heal the wound and cure the illness, but let the dying spirit go. The mother saw his movement and the meaning of it, and she cried out loud in despair. Petri stooped down by her, saying, "The Lord Sparrowhawk will save him, wife. No need to cry. He's here now. He can do it." Hearing the mother's wail and seeing the trust Petri had in him, Jed did not know how he could disappoint them. He mistrusted his own judgment and thought perhaps the child might be saved if the fever could be brought down. He said, "I'll do my best, Petri." He set to bathing the little boy with cold rainwater that they brought new fallen out from out of doors, and he began to say one of the spells of fever stay. The spell took no hold and made no hole, and suddenly he thought the child was dying in his arms. Summoning his power all at once, and with no thought for himself, he sent his spirit out after the child's spirit to bring it back home. He called the child's name, "Eoth." Thinking some faint answer came in his inward hearing, he pursued, calling once more. Then he saw the little boy running fast and far ahead of him down a dark slope, the side of some vast hill. There was no sound. The stars above the hill were no stars his eyes had ever seen. Yet he knew the constellations by name: the sheaf, the door, the one who turns, the tree. They were those stars that do not set, that are not paled by the coming of any day. He had followed the dying child too far. Knowing this, he found himself alone on the dark hillside. It was hard to turn back. Very hard. He turned slowly. Slowly he set one foot forward to climb back up the hill, and then the other. Step by step he went. Each step wailed, and each step was harder than the last. The stars did not move. No wind blew over the dry, steep ground. In all the vast kingdom of the darkness, only he moved, slowly, climbing. He came to the top of the hill and saw the low wall of the stones there. But across the wall, facing him, there was a shadow. The shadow did not have the shape of a man or beast. It was shapeless, scarcely to be seen, but it whispered at him, though there were no words in its whispering, and it reached out towards him. And it stood on the side of the living, and he on the side of the dead. Either he must go down the hill into the desert lands and light the cities of the dead, or he must step across the wall back into life, where the formless evil thing waited for him. His spirit staff was in his hand, and he raised it high. With that motion, strength came back into him, and he made to leap the low wall of stone straight at the shadow. The staff burned suddenly white, a blinding light in that dim place. He leapt, felt himself fall, and saw no more. Now, what Petri and his wife and the witch saw was this. The young wizard had stopped midway in his spell, and held the child a while, motionless. Then he had laid the little Edith gently down on the pallet, and had arisen and stood silent, staff in hand. All at once he raised the staff high, and it blazed with light fire, as if he had held a lightning bolt in his grip. And all the household things in the hut leapt out, strange and vivid in that momentary fire. When their eyes were clear from the dazzlement, they saw the young man lying huddled forward on the earthen floor, beside the pallet where their child lay dead. I'm sorry to leave you on such a sorrowful note. Perhaps this is a reminder to hug close those that we love, and to send love to those who are not close. So I'll send mine to yours, to you, and to little Peach, now and ever after.